You can't play tug with your leash. Click thumbs up for Rue, the rescue dog. She's hanging out with me today. Subscribe to my channel. Be sure you're following us on Instagram and Facebook, where we have lots of extra bonus content. Pick up a copy of my book. You can buy the traditional book or the audio book. Over the years, I've worked with thousands of dogs, and there are a few secrets that I've picked up that I'm gonna share with you. Have you ever wished that you could get paid to hang out with dogs all day while working from home? Rover is an app and a website that allows people to quickly find local dog walkers and pet sitters for their dog. I know that my audience, anyway, has responded extremely well to Rover, and it's clear that it's making life better for dogs everywhere. I know that just about all of you are dog lovers, and if you could, you would hang out with dogs all day. I can't say that I blame you either. You can be that person who helps others with their dogs while making great income doing so. Follow your passion. If you're considering working with dogs, this is a great way to gain more experience doing something that you really love. Take it from me, working with dogs is a wonderful way to make a living. Rover sitters are heroes. They're on the front lines of making the lives of dogs and the people who love them happier and more fulfilled. And here's a tip. By offering boarding in your own home, Rover sitters often make double the income than just offering other services. Plus, you get to work from home on your schedule. You can go to rover.com/ZachGeorge1. I'm gonna have that link below to apply to start working with Rover and make your dreams of working with dogs a reality. Let's cover some of my top training tips that might not be immediately obvious. Tip number 1, let your dog choose their currency. We all know that dogs love treats, and treats can be a wonderful currency or reward for dogs. It can be tempting to think that we automatically know what our dogs are going to love best. Just because you think that your dog will love one currency best doesn't mean that they will. It's true, most dogs really love food, especially good food, and Rue is no exception. She likes these treats. But look how much Rue lights up when I break out a toy. Rue really enjoys a tennis ball. Look, let's see if she'll go chase it. She doesn't even want to let go. If your dog loves something this much, use it to your advantage when training them. Keeping with our currency analogy, this ball could be like a $10 bill to your dog, whereas a treat might only be like $1. There's nothing wrong with rewarding your dog with something unconventional if they love it more than treats. Rue also likes to play tug of war, as you can see. Now, while I don't want her playing tug of war with her leash, it is okay to play tug of war with this. This isn't exactly a traditional dog toy. In fact, it's a cat toy. But look, immediately has her interest. So don't necessarily box yourself into using traditional dog toys. The feathers over here are interesting. The sound it makes is interesting. Find things that your dog finds exciting and really think outside the box, because this has your dog's interest. And once you have your dog's interest in something, you can use it to your advantage. For example, let's see if it works. Sit. Good. Yes. So I'm gonna let her chase this little cat toy around because she seems to be enjoying it. Lie down. Yes, I'll take it, good. And even though Rue would still probably be motivated to do those behaviors for a treat, you might notice the extra enthusiasm that she has when we use a toy, and that can really make all the difference for your long-term training results. If your dog isn't super enthused about the currency you're using, keep experimenting until you find something that they really love. Tip number 2, all exercise is not the same. I've noticed over the years that many people think that letting their dog outside, even if you have a giant lot, or taking your dog to a dog park to run around with dogs is sufficient exercise. And for many dogs, that might be the case. But for high energy dogs like Rue, you need to do a little bit more. I think that you'll find that you and your dog will get better results in training when those activities involve direct interaction with you, the person. Especially when you're exercising your dog, this gives them that physical and that mental stimulation that goes so far when training your dog. And guess what? Playing fetch with your dog is probably the simplest way to accomplish this. But you don't always have to play fetch or physically exercise your dog intensely. You'll find that doing lots of tricks with them, or even their basic obedience training in lots of different places, can really satisfy them mentally and physically. So in other words, when you do lots of training that involves interacting with your dog directly, that's going to provide a lot more satisfaction to your dog than just letting them run around aimlessly or even playing with other dogs. Get that brain working to really keep your dog satisfied. Tip number 3, understand your working distance. Most of us have encountered heavy distractions with our dogs before, like when we're on a walk with them And you know, it can really catch us off guard sometimes when our dogs don't listen to us as well as they did when the distractions weren't there. If you find that you're having a hard time getting your dog to listen to you around distractions, you're not alone. This is definitely one of the most challenging aspects of training dogs. Rather than just insisting that your dog pay attention to you when there's a major distraction nearby, as in the case of an approaching dog on a walk or a bike or a squirrel getting too close, understand that your job is to pinpoint the distance from that distraction where your dog does become compliant. This is what we call our working distance. For example, chances are your dog would listen to a basic sit, stay, and look at me if you were to just move 5, 20, or even 50 meters away from whatever is distracting your dog. So as they become compliant from that working distance, you can focus on slowly decreasing that distance over time. Naturally, giving your dog tons of exposure and pleasant experiences surrounding your various distraction training sessions is likely to go a long way when training them. Approaching your training in this way will help you make much faster progress around things that your dog finds particularly distracting. Tip number 4, know the difference between management and training. Understand that there are 2 major aspects to training. First, you have training like this: stay, lie down, good job. And that's what we think of when we think of training. But there's a second equally important part of training called management. So instead of just waiting for your dog to do things that you don't want them to, like chewing up your furniture or jumping on guests to then correct them, focus on preventing those things from happening in the first place and show your dog what you'd prefer they do instead. In the case of jumping on guests, for example, you would seize that opportunity to put your dog on a leash, practice your sit, stays, and look at me's in the presence of those guests so that they can learn how to behave when in that excited, stimulating state of mind. In the case of unwanted chewing, you would give your dog an acceptable chew toy, but you would also keep them in an area when you couldn't supervise them where the unwanted chewing couldn't occur. Preventing these undesired habits from occurring in the first place is by far the most efficient way to go about teaching your dog. That way, bad habits don't get momentum. Tip number 5, learn how to choose your battles. Things aren't always going to go perfectly. It's a really good idea to prioritize your training based on how important the specific task that you're teaching at that moment is. This is really one of the more nuanced aspects to teaching dogs. For example, if you're teaching your dog how to come to you, and they come to you, but then they start jumping all over you, make sure that you really reinforce come when called, because that's a potentially life-saving skill. You can always work on more minor things like jumping later on. Another example, let's say you've been working with your reactive dog who tends to lunge at other dogs when you take them on a walk. Maybe you're out walking your dog and you encounter another dog and your dog shows more restraint than usual but is still pulling on their leash. You may choose to reinforce the fact that your dog didn't react as strongly rather than focusing on the fact that there's still tension on the leash. Remember to treat progress in any area where your dog struggles as a victory in the early stages of your training. Don't expect perfection. Bottom line, don't try to fix everything at one time. Prioritize. Click thumbs up for Rue. Apply to be a Rover sitter today at rover.com/ZachGeorge1 and get paid to board and walk dogs. Subscribe to this channel. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Join our Patreon community too. See you guys next time. You did a good job today, Rue. Good girl.